You ready? Okay, I'd like to call our Finance and Audit meeting for February 6, 2025 to order at 8:30 a.m. The only member we're missing is Eric. I'll entertain a motion to allow Brian to participate remotely. Carolyn moves, Larry seconds. Any concerns? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have minutes for approval. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. What? For what?
No, he said everyone's here but Eric.
Oh. I don't know why they have it there. All right, so John, you're making a motion for the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
And Larry seconds. I know Carolyn gave a Scribner's error to Kathy, yes. My brain is just not. I need more of this tea. But besides that, is there any other concerns? No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Public comments? Anyone wishing to speak? Nope. Okay. Member comments? Terry.
Yes, thank you. At yesterday's Administrative Services Committee meeting, I had presented information regarding the current economy and the number of lost jobs in manufacturing. And Member Collins immediately said that's a lie. So I wanted to bring a report today so that you all could be assured that I would not make a public comment about economic information without having my data straight. And I do apologize. It wasn't 49,000, which was a recent that came out last week. It was 89,000 for 2024, loss of jobs in manufacturing. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Larry.
Yeah, going through the resolutions, I was wondering, do we have anything written where the resolution should include this or include that or not?
Yes.
Okay, because there was one resolution I thought did a great job of breaking down the money and the benefits and stuff. And then the next resolution did not do that, but it had a great explanation of questions that we would ask, like, is this money coming from a grant, et cetera?
Hey, that's some of the new stuff we're implementing.
Well, I think that's great, but then that one didn't have anything about the
Well,
money.
so some of the resolutions had some of the new stuff and some of them didn't, but we're gonna have that whole discussion later about all the new changes.
Okay, thank you.
But thanks for setting that up, Larry. I didn't even pay you to do that.
I'm here for it, Mike.
Dang, Larry.
It was planned.
It was planned? Oh, you set them up. Okay, I got it.
Well, I didn't.
All right, are there any other member comments? Okay, if not, we will go to routine consent agenda. I need to pull items 7.1 and 7.3. Are there others that need to be pulled? Once?
Well, let me see.
Twice?
No, I want to pull the, which one is the contract for P?
That's 13.
Oh, that's 13, so it's not under the consent. Fine and dandy. Thank you.
7-9.
7.9. Anything else? So did you want to pull 7.13, Terry?
Well, it's not part of the consent agenda.
It
Oh,
is.
7.13, I'm sorry. Yes, pull
Okay.
7.13. Sorry.
All right. So then I'll entertain a motion to approve the routine consent agenda items 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24.
I'll move.
Brian moves, Carolyn seconds. We'll go to vote. John?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Do you want to?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Okay, and myself, yes. Okay, motion passes. I'm going to make a motion to postpone to the next finance meeting items 7.1 and 7.3. Those two did not get passed through admin services, so I'm asking to postpone those to the next finance when those hopefully will come back before us again. Is there a second to that motion? Larry seconds. Any questions or concerns? Nope. Okay, we'll vote. We can just do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We are on to item 7.9. I'll entertain a motion. Larry? Is there a second? Brian seconds. Okay, John, you pulled this one?
In admin services, there were some changes made to this. One was there was a question regarding cement, and then there was also a change to it to remove pulling the electric for the charging stations, just put the sleeves in.
Okay.
So I want that noted. Was there an answer on the cement yet?
Yeah, the answer is the concern was, is there a product called named Cure and Seal specifically as part of the project? There is, the specification includes language similar to Cure and Seal. I have a meeting with the civil engineer scheduled for 1:30 to see what the actual product is. We'll call the contractor and we'll have a definitive answer on what the project is. It really is a product that does two things. It helps when the concrete has been troweled out, depending on the weather conditions, so that the moisture doesn't evaporate too quickly from it, which creates a better environment for the concrete to cure. It's a better product. And that's generally used during specific types of weather conditions. It wouldn't necessarily be used in if we were pouring concrete next week, because the evaporative component wouldn't be there. So I want to talk through that with the engineer and the contractor, just to fully understand exactly what their plan is. And the answer is going to be, I believe that yes, that product or its equivalent will be used.
Okay.
And regarding the other concern was we'd like to pull the county, the administrative services suggested pulling the EV component from the project, and it is a standalone price in the resolution. And what would it take to add empty conduits back in to make the installation of that at a different date more accessible? So that may get tricky as far as yes, no answer. That's going to be a budget number. And I think we can come up with that budget number that says to install X number of square linear feet of this size conduit in lieu of will cost this. And that would be executed as a change order. Because we can't change the specifications of the plans at this point. We would have to go out for bidding. And we'd rather not do that. We had great participation. This is a cost that's going to already be generally established in the documents, because they said to do this work we need this much money for this type of work. So there's line items. And we can get that number and report back what that is.
So if we file that plan, then we don't have to put it back out to bid and delay the project through 90 days or whatever.
Right, and yeah, that would, in this environment, that's probably then going to happen in March. If we'll turn it back around, go back out to bid. Will we get the same participation? Who knows? The numbers are out there now. So competition doesn't always work out the same way when numbers have been published. And we then would be back in front of this county board in, say, April, talk about something that we'd have to mobilize in later May, probably. Again, we just may get behind on the contractor schedule, because they want to get going. They're going to pick a job they can get going on, and we just assume that'd be us, if possible, as long as we need what everybody here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So was the resolution itself changed at all?
I know, I just,
Yes, the resolution was changed, Kathy, right, isn't
It will change once I get the additional language to add to it. So it was just amended to include those details. No
Okay.
changes have been made on your agenda, on your packet. So I haven't received anything.
so what are we voting on?
So do you want us to vote on the resolution as amended by admin services then?
And then hopefully it'll be ready.
By the county, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
hopefully
any
by this
changes that you
afternoon,
have,
I can send a note and say where we're at, or by tomorrow. anyhow.
Okay.
it? The only real change, I think, is the removal of the complete project.
And that number's identified as an alternate number,
Right.
3, I believe.
The 135,000?
So which, I'm sorry, say again, which one is being,
The only change to the resolution is added, is it 3 or 4?
Or
4? We added 4 is
Is
to,
removed.
is basically to change that to only running sleeves for EV charging stations.
And really, that's going to be I would say not minor to the overall cost of the project. Would be an approved change order. We would say, we get a number back from the contractor, and the contractor will say, to install these sleeves will be X. We will agree that those costs are competitive comparing to the numbers they used as unit values in their contract, and we would issue a change order at that time. So really, the resolution wouldn't be to change other than to remove the EV from the project. And then in order to satisfy some questions about what's in or what types of materials are being used on the concrete, that's an answer we'll just about. I think that's more to satisfy discussion about.
Okay. Yeah, essentially, the addendum calls for the electric to be run to where the pad would be and the stations would be, but not to finish all that work. The wiring would be there, the conduit would be there, the wiring would be there, everything would be ready to go. It's just drop-in pedestals. I'm oversimplifying, I recognize.
No, that's basically
drop-in pedestals and, you know, have cars plug in and charge. It was asked yesterday to remove that part of the project and the wiring.
So the conduit will be there, but the conduit will be empty
Yes.
and there won't be any wire pulled on it.
Right.
But you definitely want to put the conduit in.
I was gonna say, why not just have that as a separate resolution, like once we get closer to the deadline for it? Why are we putting a conduit there?
Oh, yeah.
We were asked to investigate that, yeah. And there's an argument to be made that it would be less expensive to put that in as the work while they're mobilized here.
Right.
Than it would be as part of a project in the future if the county decides they would like to pursue EVs on the fleet side of the work. So there's an argument to be made that would be an efficiency at that point. We'd see that cost come back.
Okay, so Kathy brought to me what the actual amendment was. Do you want me to just read that as a motion to amend? Is that okay with the committee?
Sure.
So that it is in sync with what admin did? So this is, I'll make a motion to amend the resolution authorizing a contract with Maneval? Maneval Construction of Ingleside, Illinois for the administration building parking lot renovation project with the amendment to install sleeves for future possible EV charger use. Additionally, an a la carte bid option with an added for a cure and sealer product treatment at the time of installation to enhance the durability and longevity of the concrete surface.
That's what Kunkel, he
Yeah.
reviewed that before I posted it as his motion.
I think that work is in the contract now. We're going to verify that with a discussion with the contractor and the civil engineer today. Me thinking that doesn't mean it's so. I found that out.
Okay, well, that's what, to make them in sync with admin, that's the motion that was made, so.
Okay. Well, if it works for you, it's fine by me.
Okay.
I'm just going to confirm that the product is in the job.
I don't want resolutions that are different, that we approved a different one than admin
Okay.
did, so that's not gonna be very helpful, so.
Okay.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, all,
and
Just one question. Would we know what the difference in price is gonna be?
We would have an order of magnitude on the cost of the sleeves, yes.
Brian, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to make sure that I understand what the amendment is. The amendment is solely relative to that alternate 4 and the price of $136,820, correct?
Yeah, yes,
Okay, and so in theory, we're actually reducing that portion of the cost then?
correct.
And to what point we reduce, that's the of the day is that we're waiting to find out. Is that right?
Brian, you're breaking up.
You broke up there a little bit, what was that?
Every other word.
All right, sorry. Is the idea then we're kind of waiting to get clarification of what the reduction would be?
Well, yes, but we're reducing that whole EV side of it, which was
138.
138, and then there will be a change order that'll come through that will add dollars back in again.
Okay, got it. I appreciate it. The only other question I have is the contingency addition there, which is, I think, $165,000. That's 10% more or less. Is that pretty standard in this type of project?
The biggest risk is unsuitable soils in this project. And although we did do testing, we understand there are some unsuitable soils, which just means we need to undercut and replace with other material. Because it's selective, we do 8 cores. We say, okay, and out of these 8 is this. So overall percentages, we think it'll be that. You know, we just don't know until we get it pulled up. We know in the back portion of this lot in particular, there's asphalt's been replaced already. There's water that seeps in. We are doing some mitigation with some under drainage, which will help that. So that's really our biggest risk, I think, is that. Otherwise, the job is well defined.
So again, 10% would be a pretty typical contingency for this type.
I would say yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We're on to the amended resolution then. Any more discussion? If not, then we'll go to vote. Terry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And myself, yes, motion carries. Okay, we are on to,
Yep.
what?
Yes, by vote.
Oh, we're on to item 713. Is this, Terry, you pulled this one, is this something that,
Executive.
yeah, executive session? Okay,
No,
Yeah,
it wasn't yesterday. We discussed
I know.
everything.
Let's do it today, though.
What?
Let's move it to executive session today.
okay, so,
Well, I have a simple question first that would mitigate any further discussion.
Not for me.
No, for me.
okay, but if, I don't wanna get into it if the discussion's gonna be something that should be done in executive session.
My
I'd rather-
question needs to be asked of the whole, and I would like it to be recorded. It's nothing derogatory in any form or fashion. I simply wanted to understand, is this contract that's being presented a straight up or straight down vote on what is being presented? That it's already been negotiated and this is being presented to the board to either approve or disapprove as is?
To my knowledge, that's what's being presented, yes.
Okay.
But you would still like to discuss it, though?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with it on the agenda,
It's
so
not,
that's
it's
what.
nothing, I'm not lobbing bombs.
No, it's fine.
No one is.
I'm just trying to figure out whether to move it down to item 12 under executive session and then come back out and approve it, or we can go into executive session now and get it done with and then move on with the agenda.
I'd rather
This is
keep it to
Brian.
the end.
This is Brian. Chair.
I can't hear you, Brian.
Chairman, I just want to make that if it does that's great, but I won't be able to participate in that, and I would like to participate in the final vote.
We need some time.
Well, he can, but you can participate in the final vote once we
Yeah.
get back out of session.
We would still vote out of,
Right.
And I just want to have the opportunity to
Yeah.
do so.
yeah, that's completely fine. So, are we dealing with it now? Are we going to closed session now, or do you want to do it under?
I want to do it
Later.
at the end, because I have to step out at 9 for like 10 minutes.
Okay, so we're just gonna move item 713 to item 12 for right now. And then we'll finish the agenda, we'll go into closed session, and then we can vote on it after we come back out. Okay, Brian?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so then we're on to item 8, Advanced McHenry County.
Yes.
Morning, everybody. everybody.
Good morning.
I'm Hester Dory. I'm with Northern Illinois Food Bank. I do have this. And, for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
By way of introduction, this is one of our successes on the event.
They're all successes.
And there was a request to come and share the success, and thought it'd be, take a couple minutes to show what the food bank has done with the dollars that we awarded.
I think that's great.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Yes, I'm here to thank the county and the finance committee for the ARPA funding that we received and are still using. I just have to say that of the 5 counties, we cover 13 counties, as you probably know. Of the 5 counties that we have received ARPA funding from, McHenry was the first to get on the ball and get your grant program going and make the awards. So we are grateful for that, because it gave us that commitment of 4 years of funding to acquire food that is benefiting our member agencies and our residents. And because of the collaboration that you suggested with United Way of Greater McHenry County, we have also had this commitment to be able to provide home delivery of food to neighbors unable to get to a local food pantry. As you can see from the handout, in just over 2 years, we have distributed over 500,000 pounds of food and made 16,000 home deliveries. We've been able to purchase a variety of perishable and shelf-stable items for our member agencies to help them serve the increasing number of neighbors in need of food assistance. All our member agencies, 21 food pantries, which are listed on the second page, have benefited from the funding. Each member agency reports to the food bank monthly on the number of neighbors they are serving. And since 2022, this number has increased by 50% to our current average of 35,000 neighbors served monthly. This aligns with what we are seeing across our whole service area, where we are currently serving 570,000 individuals each month. This is due to increased living costs for food and especially for housing, and in the winter months for increased heating costs, where people are maybe choosing between paying their bills and getting food. While unemployment is low and wages have increased, they have not kept pace with inflation. And the median wage, this is across our 13 counties, is $23 an hour, with the living wage for this area estimated at $37 an hour. 42% of households in our service area have incomes below the living wage. The grant has also helped fund our partnership with United Way, who manage the home deliveries from food pantries and schools using DoorDash drivers. The Food Bank and United Way have partnered with DoorDash since 2021 to pick up food boxes at pantries or for our online food pantry. In McHenry, 5 food pantries, 2 mobile markets and 3 schools currently provide home delivery of food. And we know that this is a huge benefit to individuals with disabilities, elderly residents, and those without transportation, or those who cannot get to a food pantry when it's open. Food security and nutrition are directly correlated to worker productivity, mental health, and physical health. And this program is meeting immediate needs and preventing larger problems for individuals and society. So thank you. This support will last. We have budgeted to use the grant funding through December 2026. We will probably plan to spend by the 3rd quarter of 26 so that we can complete our reporting by the end of December. The food bank obviously hopes that the number of people needing food and delivery assistance will not continue to climb, but based on recent trends, we are not optimistic. And we are concerned that when these ARPA grants are depleted, we will be faced with filling that gap in funding with financial support from private or local funders. We already saw a significant change in the balance of food donated and what we had to purchase after the pandemic grants finished in 2022. I think that's right. Before the pandemic, we were purchasing just 10% of the food we distributed, and we are now purchasing 25% of the food we're distributing, which last year across our service area was 90 million meals and 6 million meals in McHenry County. This increase in the amount that we need to purchase has challenged our fundraising, and although we are fortunate to have dedicated individual, corporate, and foundation donors, inflation is also affecting our donors, especially at the lower level. We have seen a huge spike in need from neighbors when the pandemic-era SNAP benefits finished. SNAP is the most effective solution for food insecurity, allowing neighbors to shop and choose the food they need at the grocery store, while also putting money back into the local economy. We continue to advocate at the federal level for the continuation of SNAP benefits, but this is not guaranteed in the current climate. We hope the county will consider looking forward into the future, possibly budgeting in your county budget for continued support of food and delivery programs that benefit your most vulnerable residents once these federal grants have been depleted. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Committee member have any questions? Carolyn?
You said you used to purchase 10% of the food that goes to your, and it increased to what was it?
25%, yeah. Because, the need went up and has not come down, it continues to go up, but our donated food from manufacturers and government resources has remained pretty flat. Donations from manufacturers have been impacted by the fact that after the pandemic, manufacturers are also fairly careful about what they're buying, and we're just not getting as much donated food.
Do you do where they have where it's fresh food, that so it doesn't go to waste? I don't know what that's called. I mean, it's like recovery of food that
From
is
the retail
prepared. Yes,
stores?
that's prepared, but isn't bought or isn't sold, but it's still good.
We don't do prepared food, we do groceries. So we pick up
fresh
from,
food.
yes, fresh meats, dairy, deli, and produce from all the retail stores. And that goes directly to our food pantries. We match the retail store with a food pantry, and they pick up on certain days. And that accounts for about almost half of our donated food, so that is a huge benefit. But we also purchase fresh produce. Fresh produce accounts for 25% of what we're distributing, because that is the most requested item by our neighbors. Plus, it obviously has the health benefits. And we purchase in bulk, because what we're getting from the retail stores, while it's super helpful, is not always, doesn't always have a terribly long shelf life.
Right, yeah.
So we also give our member food pantries access to purchased produce that will have probably 5 to 7 days.
So I thought I just heard a figure recently, like 63% of what we prepare is wasted.
Yes, probably. Unfortunately, we don't have a good way to recover
capture that,
prepared food,
right.
Because we can't, pick up meals from restaurants. And I mean, the soup kitchens and shelters that are distributing directly to our neighbors can use that better than the food pantries can.
Can I ask you a quick question? On the third page, this page, you have up here neighbors served, and it says average 38,875 neighbors each month. Is that just in McHenry County?
Yes.
So you're saying over 10% of our county population is utilizing some type of,
Probably.
well, because we're just over 310,000, so
Yep.
I didn't do the math, but that's like 11%, something. So 1 out of every 10 people are utilizing some type
Food
of
insecure. Yes.
supplemental food source.
Yes.
That's incredible. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hester.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
And where are you from originally?
England. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize, I didn't have the handouts electronically, but I can send them and maybe you can pass them on.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Carrie, you got anything else?
Well, I sent out the ARPA handout earlier this week, updated. We just completed our quarterly reporting to the US Treasury. We are everything is allocated / obligated, so we are in good standing. All of the projects are moving along good. We have a couple of public projects that are a little behind, just in submitting their reimbursements, and it's due to change of staffing and stuff, so I'm working directly with them to get that in. So we'll get those caught back up. But otherwise, everything is going very well, I think. I think we're gonna have quite a few projects that close out this year. So that will be good. Are there any questions?
Less to keep track of.
It is, but I have a good system. I got it down now.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just give you one more minute, you correct me, you know, in December, we kind of moved money from the failed housing project in Woodstock into the capital program to help us acquire or work on our facilities. And
Yes,
with
space
your
study.
vote on 7-Eleven, we're kind of taking that money and putting it into the new building.
Yes,
It's a good and quick resolution.
yes. We like those ones.
Okay, we're on to reports then. Carrie. Other Carrie.
Okay, so first item is kind of housekeeping. I just wanted to make you aware, for full transparency, 7.21, the state's attorney, the roster changes. That was something that we talked about during budget and I failed to add it to the supplemental list, so that's why you're seeing it as a resolution. But our public defender reminded me that when the state's attorney moves, the public defenders have to move as well. So when you're considering this on your final vote, next month the public defender has a few positions that he will also need to move up with that. It's about $2,500 impact.
So you're saying for equity purposes, is that what?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, I saw him in the hallway yesterday and he's like, you know.
So is that, you're saying that'll come before us in another resolution?
Correct, I didn't think of it when I.
That's fine.
So, just so you know.
Okay. So if we reject this one, then we won't see the other one.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
If you don't reject it, you will see the other one.
Okay.
Next, just an update with the external audit. It's moving along well. Baker Tilly will be here on the 10th of March, which seems really quick, but we're doing well. And then, I told you guys last month about ClearGov. So just really quick.
Oh, Maureen.
So you don't have to come up if you don't want, but you can. I don't. So I wanted you guys, I think you guys may all know Maureen Gates. She works within finance. She's kind of behind the scenes, doesn't like to come up to the table. But I asked her to join us just because we submitted the 2025 budget document to GFOA in the second week of January. Yes, and so the GFOA requirements say it's due at the end of February, but we've usually in the past had to ask for extensions, so we'd be into, April, May, June. So I think, using our new tools, all of Maureen's work, we have this submitted to GFOA. And the reason why I think the timing is important is, I feel like when we're submitting it in June, it's not as beneficial when you're looking back at a budget. Whereas, right now, it may be a little more useful, if the public's looking for information or whatever. So just really quick, you can find it from our finance page. So if you just click on the link and it brings you to the portal. And one thing we are working on with ClearGov is we got some feedback from last year's GFOA reviewers was that this navigation up here was a little difficult. So we're working on a better table of contents, so that's coming. But really if you hover over these, you can find pretty quickly what you're looking for. And the main thing I would think what would interest you guys or maybe some of your constituents is if you come to departments, you can scroll through and pretty easily find a department. We always pick on assessments because they're first. But what's nice about this, and we start to see some of this in their budget presentations, is you can get a quick snapshot of what they do, how they got started, highlights and goals, and then their expenses, high level. And, a lot of these tools that we have, I really like because, a lot of people are visual, so you can see the graph. But then if you want to dig in and look at some of the numbers, that's available. A little write-up about why the dollars have changed or haven't changed. Another graph, and then you can see it in a table format, revenue, and then FTEs and org charts. So we have that for all of the departments. We have a lot of discussion in this fund summary, where I know this comes up more during the actual budget process. But looking at all of our funds and how they fall into the total budget. And then, this is my favorite chart, talking about which departments are impacted by, or which fund each of these departments fall into. Like, so when you're looking at your resolutions, it's just always to help you guys understand the big picture when we're giving you just ones and twos resolutions. So yeah.
Forgive me. How do we get to that from the site again?
So if you go into the McHenry County homepage, if you go to departments and then finance, so off to the side here we have all of the budgets. And actually this is also where you can find the financial reports and like the single audit. But the budgets, if you click on that, and then here's all the list of them.
The plus budgets button, right?
Correct.
Because I'm at the same point, I'm not pulling up what you had.
No.
So if you click on
I know, it's a different color, which is a big tell.
Okay.
So, you have
Oh, you know
under
what?
budgets, it's 25, the budget presentation, and then the 2025 budget interactive is
So I'll have to
different than this
help me
one.
with this.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
Okay.
But it
I wanted to
is,
get to where, especially the departments and where it's funded from.
yes,
Because, I don't know how everybody was the morning that we heard the news that federal grants were stopped temporarily. And I was like, what does that impact?
right.
So.
Well, and actually, since we're here, one thing, because Alicia was asking me, because the press was asking her questions. If you look here under the single audit,
Okay, so go back.
yeah, which is also on the finance page. So the single audit, we do our regular full financial audit, and then after that, we do the single audit, and it's something Baker Tilly looks at. But this is a listing of all our federal grants.
So where did you go? You had single audits, and then what did you hit?
So single audits, and then I'm out here.
You went to 2023?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
most recent, because
Okay,
we're working on
that's fine.
24 right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the single audit, you know, because it's like, well, what's the impact to the county, or what's the potential impact? And, you know, there's so many unanswered questions, but this kind of gives you a snapshot of what's these, and this is all federal funded, whether it passes through the state or whether it's directly federal funded.
So it's like about 22.5 million.
Correct.
Do you
Not
find
about,
it?
exactly.
Do you find it, Carol?
Well, I have the single audit for 2023,
Okay, go down the very bottom.
the very last page.
Yeah.
There's only 5.
Well, I'm on page 10, and it's not actually the last page. 10 and 13. And then there's all totaled with federal awards.
Okay.
So a little less than 10% of the total budget comes from federal grants.
Yes.
I got 2 pages. Yeah, okay.
This is 23, so
Well,
it's always
right.
lagging, but yes.
6%.
Well, we'll have 24 audited numbers up there pretty soon.
So this actually, this audit happens after the financial one, so we start working in this one in June, and it's due to the federal audit clearinghouse in August, but hopefully it will be sooner.
It says November 30th of 2023.
Yeah. But you know, we don't, outside of ARPA, a lot of these grants, they're fairly stable amount, so I'd say 22.5 or so is about our impact. So again, it's just kind of when you hear these things and then how does it apply to us, you know, that's why I always like to circle back and have you guys look at these wonderful reports that we spent a lot of time putting together. So that's it.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
Well, you gotta do what Larry set you up for.
Oh.
Wow, you're just gonna blow right over that, okay.
I thought we already did that. Okay, so we met, yeah, thank you. Pete and Mike and I met, and Scott, and we talked about what can we add to the resolution so we start, you know, I think all of the information has always been on the resolutions, it's just kind of highlighting it and organizing it under the budget section. So we talk about, you know, is it an ongoing expense, where's it going to be funded from, and a little bit more information.
Why did this come mid-year?
Yes.
You know, why was this not part of the budget discussion? It's a common question, and there's generally a good answer, but it should be asked and answered.
Right.
So Kathy has emailed you each, kind of to Larry's question, kind of the new draft format for resolutions. We shared this with department heads conceptually a few weeks ago, and then by the time conception became reality, a number of the resolutions had been written already. So there are not too many that got in this cycle with the new text, but there will be moving forward. It is now into the eScribe template, and I think you look forward to seeing more of these.
For me, it was 7.2 and 7.3. They're both good examples of what should be there and what's not there. 7.2, there was explanation. In the explanation part, there was answered the questions, the typical questions that we'd have, like where's the money coming from and how come we're seeing this now? But really the benefits weren't broken down, the money wasn't broken down. But in 7.3, the money was broken down real clear, but they didn't have those questions. So if somebody wants to look at those two, they're good examples of if everything was in from both of those resolutions, was in all of them, it would be a little better.
So it's a work in progress, so I was challenging staff to, because I'm listening to what board members are saying and questions that they have and concerns that they have, not only throughout the year, but even when we get to budget time. And so I was trying to figure out a way to allow board members an easy way of looking at the information. So I agree with Pete, most of the time the information was in not necessarily the resolution itself, but in the supplemental, supporting documentation. But it wasn't always there, and it wasn't always very clear and upfront. And so I was trying to create a way that would make it much easier for a board member to, if they didn't, for whatever reason, didn't have time to read the whole resolution, this was like, hey, read this box because this is the most important information pertaining to, for our job, what it is you need to look at. And I think it's also good for board members to understand, and one of the things that I had asked Carrie to do was, as we go through the year, we're approving resolutions that we are using fund balance for. And to try and, I'm asking her to keep similar to what we have for our contingency report, which we don't really have, but have something, and maybe instead of the contingency report, that totals that. So you can get more of a grasp on an ongoing year, like, okay, we keep on approving these resolutions. Well, that amount, starts going up into the millions, understanding that millions are now going to be dumped into the budget discussion, of which you already approved resolutions, of which now needs to be absorbed. And so, to me, it's a good way of highlighting and making board members aware of our actions throughout the year and what will end up happening come budget time, in the budget discussion cycle. So it's a work in progress, and your feedback is important, and all the board members' feedback is important, so that we can refine this so that it makes it easier and usable, for you and everyone else.
Yes.
Good.
And just to comment on the 7.2 and 7.3, typically in the past, general fund departments, the benefits are not in the departments. So when we look at the resolution, it's really just how does it affect like the assessments budget? But, to your point, we're still paying FICA and IMRF even if we're not adjusting the budget. So do you want to see that in the body of the resolution or just under the budget section?
I thought
Because
number 3 laid it out very clean and clear.
Okay. Because in reality, so when the smaller departments make these kind of changes, we have to adjust their budget because, they don't have the vacancy or the turnover. But, $200-300 to the IMRF fund, that is for the whole general fund, $4 million. We're not gonna be making all those budget adjustments, it can absorb it. But it still doesn't mean that it's not going up, so have them be more clear.
That sounds good to me.
Anyone else have thoughts on kind of where we're heading to?
Thank you for listening, and because I've noticed and I appreciate it, so thank you.
I was just gonna say too, and every department has their own little style and we get great reports. What I do, it's just an example, like Kathy Keith comes in and there's a history to behind how we got to where we are. And I'm not asking for a ton of information, but that second sheet oftentimes is kind of, now that we're doing what we're doing, it's gonna be better, it's gonna be laid out in a way, it's gonna answer those questions, it's gonna be very specific. But even if there is some background information that would be helpful to understand how we got where we are, that second sheet, not so much in the resolution, but just that one sheet backup has been good when that has happened by different departments. And a lot of different departments, EMA has done it, Sheriff's Department has done it. So I think I really appreciate when that happens, because then otherwise when you're on short of time and you've got 6 or 7 different attachments, this is, if you don't have time to go through everything, you can just kind of go there and you're like, okay, I got it, and can make at least an informed decision. So whatever they can do on that second sheet is great too.
Okay.
It's not very specific, but whatever helps.
A couple other things that I'm working on, and just kind of more informational, but every year I get frustrated, and I take it personal, and it's my own, therapist can work with me on it, but it's when we get down to November and voting on a budget, and to me, there's a lot of stress in relation to that. And so I'm trying to, I propose to staff that we have a special budget meeting in June this year. And the purpose of that is to kind of have like a mid-year check-in at where we at, in our current budget year, and where we're heading towards as we kind of complete out the end of the year. And I want it to be a working meeting where, board members can ask questions and we can start to analyze, like I just talked about, the resolutions that we've already passed, where we're seeing we're going. Because I feel like sometimes, this committee, I feel like is very well informed, but the rest of the board, outside of us 7 members, I don't want to say are in the dark, but unless they watch these meetings, they don't necessarily know what's coming up. And so I feel like a June or sometime in that vicinity, check-in is a healthy thing for us, so that when the budget discussions start to happen and we start having those difficult discussions about what we're doing with, the budget whole cycle, it's not a shock. It's like, okay, so we're having these check-ins, and so we're working on that, and I don't quite know exactly what that looks like yet, but that's one of the things we're working on. And then the other thing that I, again, have challenged is the whole concept of when the departments come to us and present their budgets. This has been a work in progress for many years, and I still feel that what is being presented to us and what we're getting out of it, there's a disconnect there. And I don't want to be wasting departments or elected officials' time by coming here and presenting stuff, and we're all just kind of nodding, is this something we should, do we have approval to move this on? And everyone nods their head, yeah, it's fine. And to me, I don't want to say it's a show, but it doesn't have a lot of meaning to it. And that's, to me, why in the hell are we doing it if it has no meaning? And so we, for the last many years, we get to October, November, and we're having all these discussions about, well, what do we do with CPI? Do we not take CPI? Do we keep CPI at 0? Do we take new growth? Do we not take new growth? And to me, there's a definite disconnect between board members and department heads / staff about what that all means. And I sat in Carrie's office, and I was just like, I was kind of exasperated, because I was like, to me, I would love it if the board would, in an ideal world, the board makes a decision early and says, hey, we are only willing to do whatever that is. We're only willing to take new growth. We're not willing to take CPI. We're only willing to take new growth plus, some portion of CPI. We're willing, whatever the hell that is, I don't really care. But then, to me, when the department heads and elected officials come before us, it has more meaning to it, because at that point, they already know what's coming down the line. Right now, I feel like there's a huge disconnect between, well, this is what our needs are. Here, you asked us to do a zero-based budget. We did a zero-based budget. We're doing this, we're doing that, and we still have these needs, so these are all the supplementals. And we all just kind of nod our heads and be like, yeah, okay, great. But to me, there's still a disconnect between what the board's intentions are, because truly, if let's just say there's a majority of the board that says we don't want to take CPI, we don't want to take new growth. Well, then the discussion really needs to be by the department heads and elected officials. What does that mean for our budget? What does that mean? What does that mean for the services we're offering, our service organizations? So those services are going to be impacted. And to me, that's a much more meaningful conversation between whatever committee is having those meetings, and how it impacts the whole budget. You know, I mean, we have, and not to pick on Joe Terrio, but you know, he comes with a different budget every single year based on what elections or cycles there are and how that impacts things. You know, so his budget goes up or down based on how many elections he's got going on. I'm still, this is like inside of Mike's head. I'm sorry, I'm kind of just spewing it all out there, but these are the things that I'm trying to figure out how as an organization we can be better and have more meaningful time spent, and how we can try and make it work better for us. Because I just feel, maybe you guys don't feel it, but I just, like in October, November, I just get stressed out because I'm just like,
Sorry.
well, no, and it's not a bad thing, but again, I take it personal. I feel like we as an organization put in a lot of time and effort into a budget, and everybody does. And then for it to come down to, okay, well, we need 10 votes on something, what the hell are we getting 10 votes on? You know, I gotta imagine for the elected officials and the department heads, that's stressful too. It's like, well, they're all fighting for their own departments for every single dollar because they're trying to do the best they can, but they're at 18 members' whims. I mean, you know, and for it to come down to the last month, and it just, I constantly am trying to figure out some way where we could collectively work better at achieving what we're trying to do.
That was really well said. And one of the signs of great leadership is when the intent is conveyed and then the team is allowed to have the liberty to get to that end. So when you talk about having a meeting in June, and if people were of the mind that this is what we want in growth and CPI for this year, this is our intent, and then they could be working toward that end so that come October, when we're publishing our budget, that they have worked to how to get there. And if there were issues that came up during that time, we've got months to discuss it and perhaps rethink it, and whatever it would be, if there were roadblocks to that. So I think you're really on the right track.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that's probably why since I've been here that I can remember, I wish we would start the actual presentation of like a mock budget, mock budget, mock tax levy earlier in the year and bring it in front of the whole board so we can start airing out and get a better feel for where everybody's at then, right? Like maybe we crunch through, get a rough draft of what we think, all the departments put together, what they think they need or what their budget is, and they start bringing it in maybe like July, and we start hashing out then. Because obviously, going back to what Terry said about like leadership conveying and then letting the department, go implement it. One, you're not able to do that when we're presenting it in October, right? Like the budget at that point, there's limited time. Things are already in place or been rolling. It's not fair to them because they're not able to. And then two, another issue is, there are 18 of us and we all have, varied opinions on, what is important, what isn't important. So kind of being able to figure out earlier on where the majority, what that majority vote is thinking. And it also gives us less excuse. That's what I would prefer. I would prefer the budget discussions be presented not just to this committee, but to the whole board earlier in the year, whether that's June, July, not for necessarily final votes or anything, but just just so we can avoid some of the issues we've had the last couple of years and maybe before.
And I would agree with Ms. Greeno and Mr. Hendricks. To me, it's almost like, I feel like we should be able to set
Bipartisan.
a top line budget number that then you carry and then the department heads are able to work towards, which encompasses whether we're gonna do any type of increases or things like that. So that top line budget number is, 260 million, but people don't come forward with things that they know are not gonna happen potentially. Or put things on there that maybe just don't make sense to the overall scheme of things. But setting that top line budget number, I think gives people something to focus on, and then how that gets broken down in departments, staff can kind of look at that. So then we're presented with an overall plan based on some guidance we provide.
I agree.
Well said.
No, I agree as well, and I think one of the points I think you're getting at too is not just where we want to be at the end of the day, but we make decisions every time we walk in this room, money decisions that impact that final budget, but we don't understand how that's impacting that goal that we're trying to get at. So, and an example is, when the sheriff's department came in and needed the deputies, and when the state's attorneys came and they had to adjust the salaries, we thought those were good expenses. But adding those in created a funding issue, which then gets back into, well, then are we taking growth? Are we taking CPI? What does that look like? But if we made the decision earlier in the year, and then we get to the end of the year and say, but no, I don't want to take the 3%. Well, but we made decisions that required it in some sense. And we can't go back to staff at the end of that year and say, okay, we'll find projects that you can eliminate or cut or whatever to meet that goal, because the decision as to what those projects or programs or whatever are is really more policy oriented. So we should be adding that information as we go, right? So we were talking about earlier on to talk about the budget in June, but when we talk about the decisions we make now, how is that fitting into the overall goal, whether it's just growth? Again, like we said, what do we want to do at the end of the day? But knowing that every time we walk in here, that decision is going to impact whether or not we can meet that goal realistically.
Well, which is why I'm trying to change the resolution side of it so that it's more apparent to everyone what it is we're doing. But again, sometimes it's done as a microcosm of the bigger picture.
Which you can't, and then it's harder to make that decision because you're like, oh yeah, this sounds really good, and then you've got a lot of yes, that sounds really good, to where you, at the end of the day, now you have more than you feel like you want to finance or something at the end of the day. So, and I don't know. I mean, if we do create that, we want to take growth only, or we want to take a certain percentage at the end of the year, and we move these requests forward. Well, if we need something specific, then in order to meet that goal, what are we looking at? What are some things that we need to cut back on?
Yeah, and
up front, so that we help make that decision. We're not throwing it back and say to staff, figure it out.
Well, and that's why I think it would probably,
No, I was just, Dave wants to talk, so I'm letting board members talk first. So.
well, I think that, that's another thing too, right? Like maybe that June vote, or whatever, July, if we decide to do it, or at least start the discussion with the whole board earlier, right? At that point, we can kind of make a decision and say, hey, county administration, we want to lower taxes, or whatever it is, right? But like, we want to lower taxes 5%. What would your budget look like, if everybody took a 5% cut or whatever to make that happen? And then if things get rolled up, like the new deputies or whatever, that'll obviously impact it. But at least then we're providing guidance to the administration of like what our eventual goal is. So staff is able to go, do their best to achieve it, whether it's coming from, a chunk of it is coming from one area, if they're all gonna do it, everybody rolls back, X percent or however that happens. But starting the discussion, I would imagine would at least give staff more time to try to figure out a plan on how to implement it to the best of their ability, and if they can't do it, you know, then whatever, but at least we know in advance what we're working with and, you know, whether we agree, whether the board would agree with that it can't happen that way. And I've always hated, but I was also not in finance before, but I always hated at the end of the year, because we do rely on the committees, right? Like, we're not all reading 200, you know, or whatever items, so we do rely on committees. And, you know, what you know, as little as, you know, 3 people might be voting on in a committee doesn't necessarily reflect the views of everybody else. But then it passes committee, it goes to, on the consent agenda, and, you know, it slips through. So I just think it's an inefficient way to budget, to have a small group of people make decisions, the rest of the board rely on them, and then at the end of the year, it's October, we're 2 months away, or 1 month away, whatever it is, and all of a sudden now we're trying to figure out, you know, what can we slash, or for the people who want to do that and whatnot. So that's what I would like. I think my biggest concern with that would be what are the burdens? You know, how much extra work is that on staff, right?
Well, I guess, can I just comment on that? Because I think, and this is tying back into the disconnect, where, you know, you guys pass things all year, and then you come to us and say, we want to cut. And it's like, well, I think sometimes cuts are policy decisions and not necessarily us to just come up with cuts. I mean, we obviously would help and be involved with that. But that, I think, should get pushed back to the committees. And if you know we're gonna need a cut in June, then the committees need to do their work with the departments and say, you know, because we can't just do a 5% cut across the board.
No, of course.
Because that looks so different for all departments. But, you know, if the committees are doing their work with the departments and saying, challenging them, do you need this, do you need that? You know, then we kind of have a better idea of cuts or reductions or better efficiencies before we get to October.
To your question, can we do it? I'm very confident.
Of course we can do it.
I mean, just like a rough. In June,
Yeah.
you could take known expenses.
Right.
And projected expenses. We know what the union increases are gonna be, many of them in June. We know what they'll be. You know, if we say, okay, this is what a 3% non-union increase is, this is what a 3.5% non-union increase is, this is what 4, you know, we'll get a better sense of what inflation's like at that point. You know, roll that up with known contracts and known contract increases, you start to paint a big picture of this is how much money we're going to need. And these are revenue projections and how closely are they aligned. And it would be good. We could also use that time to look a little bit at the mental health board and where they're at with their revenue projections.
Okay, Dave, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, as a department head.
Can you, I can't hear you that well, so.
Sorry, we gotta get under the recording.
As a department head, I applaud the June meeting. I don't know how that shapes out. But there's 2 things that drive what I do, or 3 things. Number 1, I have certain state and federal mandates for the job I do, right? And I try to meet those. The second one that we haven't talked about a lot, and we used to have to include on resolutions, was your strategic plan. So when I would turn in a resolution, you used to have me tie it to your strategic plan. That's what I'm trying to do to help you reach what you plan for. This intent meeting that you're talking about in June would be extremely helpful to me as a department head. Because when I look at federal grants or federal mandates or federal training requirements, I look at what their intent was. I have a lot of colleagues with FEMA that help guide me of what's the intent, not just the words in the paper, the intent. So if you were meeting with me and my fellow department heads and elected officials in June, what's your intent? Do you want us to continue EMA doing the damage assessments after disaster because that's the right thing to do? It helps me think about how I'm doing my budget. So I stayed because I wanted to hear about the resolutions because I didn't understand the impact on my department and I wanted to hear that. I'm so glad I stayed to hear you say those words, Mike, that what is your intent? And I think we also tie it to your strategic plan. If that's where you want to be, how do I as a department head help the county reach that level? So thanks for giving me the opportunity to say something. And I appreciate it.
And I would even say, like, for the department heads, right, like, it's a good point. I knew about it, but, yeah, it wasn't on the top of my mind, but like mandatory, actions that the county has to engage in versus discretionary would be, I think, useful, right? Like, if someone's spending $1 billion, but they have to spend $1 billion, okay, like, why, well, like, our hands are tied, right? But I think that would, I don't know where on that resolution, maybe in the background discussion or whatever, but even if you could just say something like that, because then when inevitably I go through and look at the budget and I'm like, why are we doing this? At least then, throughout the year, I can be like, okay, like, this is mandatory, I can't complain about this,
Well, you can still complain about it, but you can't do it.
Well, I'll complain, I definitely will complain, but like, I won't be, brimstone and fire.
I didn't know if you were gonna pull my resolutions, and I did it with law and government, and what I did was I captured the authorities, we call them the authorities, whether it's federal or state, that guide my department, and the last time they changed it. And as you're probably fully aware, every time they change something in Springfield or Washington, it doesn't make my job easier, right? So I did prepare that, and I was prepared to present it to you. I'll leave it here if you're interested in it, but this is what drives a large part of my job, plus your heart and your mind on what emergency management does in the county. And you do some of that through the strategic plan, some through the board liaison. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk, and I just want to say thank you for thinking about that. And I hope we carry through, and maybe we think about reincorporating strategic planning, your strategic plan, in our resolution. So if we're trying to help you reach that goal, that's part of our resolution.
And maybe even that June meeting, or what, again, I'm just saying June, but I don't really care when it is, but even that earlier meeting, like, maybe that's a good opportunity for the department heads to also all join and kind of give like a brief, like, layout, like, hey, here's what we're thinking our budget is, 70% of it is mandatory, these are some discretionary things, but we think it's a good value add because X, Y, Z, or I don't know. I'm not trying to just drown everyone in work. So I want to do something that's like efficient and like actually doable. But I definitely think we need to start discussing this stuff, the big picture earlier on.
So I'll leave these here and I'll get out of here because I'm speaking for a lot of departments. But what Brooke did was she took all of these mandates and what they translates into what we do as an agency to meet those mandates.
Does it include like dollar figures and stuff? Not dollars, but like just like, no, okay.
No, but I think this is a good sheet, so I think you guys should, when you talk about different committees, this is good to get information to look at.
Thank you so much.
I think they brought it here and everyone should take one.
Yeah, because like I would
bring
give rid
enough
of,
copies? Okay, yeah, I think I would take one.
because I would get rid of Saturday court, but we can't, right? Like Safety Act. So I just think that would be useful info.
Well, I was just gonna add into, just to add to that, when we start talking about, what the mission is and what is mandated and what is not, I think it's also gonna be helpful to know how has the cost of providing the same level of service gone up? Because and Eric, you and I have talked about this before, but if it costs more to do the same thing and you don't raise taxes, you actually have almost like a tax decrease because you're providing the same service, which is it's a weird way of looking at it, but it's the same service, but it's costing you more. And so if we don't take into consideration the cost increases, we're operating in a vacuum because I just see staff trying to do more with basically less because the dollars aren't going as far. And so we have to kind of keep that in consideration when we're looking at these things. So anyway, I know, John, you had something too, fine.
I'm gonna let Sandy go.
Just, really quick, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you guys know, I have a very large budget. I think the June meeting is great. My budget, I start doing my budget in March with my department heads, and by June, what I'm proposing to you guys for FY26 is pretty much done. I'm meeting with them in July. We're going through it. We've got all the backup. So with the June meeting and direction coming after that, a lot of departments like mine our stuff is already kind of done. Now, I hear, well, no, I know. I listen to what goes on and I watch meetings, so I paid a lot of attention at the end of last year as you guys were voting on the budget, so I kind of know in the development of mine what some of the questions and challenges are gonna be, but.
Well, and I don't think, right, like, I think the county's debt free. Like, we're fiscally responsible. I just think there's been a disconnect between how prepared the staff are, which are very prepared, like, everybody's in the know, you're in the know, Carrie's in the know, Pete's in the know. But I just don't think the big picture has been considered by board members until, it's vote time.
Sure, yeah.
So.
And I present my budget to law and government,
It's a big
right?
picture, yeah. And
I don't know, I really feel like,
I don't wanna
I love
manage
law and
everyone.
government, they're very supportive, but financially, this committee, I don't get a chance to come before and really discuss why, my commodities went up or my contractuals went up or what we're doing. So that's just a thought as you're considering.
No, and I think that's
that's
that's part of the problem, right? I mean, that is, every department an elected official, I know will do the best they can with the money that they're allocated. They may not like it because they may want to do more or try and get more services to the public, and yours is public safety, right? So, there's always a push for that aspect of it. But again, if you knew that the board was only going to approve X amount of new funding, and even with just all of the, I'll say, attrition of dollars that go up, that's already been eaten away, and then we still have a deficit, that now says, okay, well, I gotta relook at the services I'm offering and how I'm offering them, and what does that mean for public safety, right? In multiple aspects. And yes, you have rules and regulations that you are required to do, so it's not like you can just willy-nilly choose where you want to do stuff. So, but again, 18 members don't necessarily understand or hear that. You got 7 members that do, but again, we as 18 are having those 7 members, make those, I'll say, tough decisions about your budget. And in the past, there hasn't been those discussions. It's a very, I'll say, BS kind of way of going about things. And it's just, it's not anyone's fault. I'm just trying to figure out a way to make it better. It's where we've always done it, and I'm just.
We're on board, and it is stressful for us too.
Well, it's stressful for everybody. I mean, and I'm not saying it'd be stupid to think that we're gonna get rid of all the stress. But if we can reimagine what things look like and again, it's a work in progress, right? Every year we try and do things better and more efficiently, and we try and make improvements, right? And I'm totally game with that, but just something we gotta figure out. Because I think we all recognize it's not great, but we gotta figure out a way to make it better. Okay. Huh?
Brian has his hand
Oh, Brian, you wanna talk?
Yeah, I just want to, I think that we all agree, and we are intimately aware of the fact that the single most important decision that we make each year on behalf of the people that we serve is how to use most efficiently and to the best of our ability the people's resources to provide the services that they need to uphold their quality of life. And so I think that it's very wise, and I think it's most appropriate for us to start the discussion earlier in the year to come together to determine some overriding parameters that we all believe are important for us to operate under, and they may change from one year to the next. Just like I suggest this past budget year, one of the primary priorities for many individuals was to increase the number of sheriff's officers. But we also are going to see, as we move forward, other types of parameters that are going to be established. But it does provide us the chance to have that discussion early on. So I am wholeheartedly in support of this and appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
I was gonna say one more thing, but I don't know if John wanted to say something.
No, I'm good.
Okay, because I do want to say that we did actually try to do this a couple of years ago, where we were going to talk about, have the departments come forward and talk about the different programs, so that we could identify, those that are required by mandate, those that are required by statute, and that is clear core responsibilities that the county has to provide, like, taking care of roads, and then what are other programs that we started to add on, like Eric said, maybe it's something that's not mandated, but maybe we do it because it's the right thing to do. And you mentioned that too, in some of the things that get done. And then are there some that maybe we've kind of have mission creep, where it's starting to get a little bit bigger than we need, and maybe and we want to rein that in. And I think that that's what we were trying to do a couple of years ago. But that's a big process, because to have every department come in and tell you everything they're doing and decide which one we want to, that just wasn't, so there is a reason why that really just didn't move forward. But this might provide the framework to have that, start to narrow that down a little bit, right? We know what we really need to do, and then maybe the departments can look at it a little bit and say, okay, well, if we are meeting this goal, then where are those areas of, we're probably doing a little bit more than we need to. Can we pull that back in? But I do think that there are things that we do, maybe not by mandate, but they help the community in a way that actually is probably may cost a little bit money, but it saves more money in the end in terms of the types of services. We keep people out of jails because we do the specialty courts. There's a lot of things that we do that actually have a very positive and not only just for the benefit of the community, but a positive financial impact. It's a lot it's a lot more costly to house somebody in jail than to rehabilitate them, get them back to their families, get them back into jobs, and get them back to contributing to the economy. So, so if we can keep that in mind as we go. But, so this, I think, gives a framework for that, and we can maybe get back to that.
And not to complicate things, but, we have this discussion all the time in October, November about, do we take new growth, do we take CPI, or any portion of CPI? And all of that is revolving around property taxes. Well, again, when you look at our budget and what property taxes fund, it is a portion, but it's less than 70 million of a $250 million budget. And so, when you look at even just how this discussion unfolds, you have departments or elected officials that say, well, I shouldn't be affected because I don't have any general fund property tax dollars in my budget, And so you can't, just because a department only gets funded by general fund dollars, doesn't mean that they get screwed because of 18 members' actions, So again, it's more of a complicated, jello mold type philosophy, as far as how things go. So, we collectively, 18 of us, have the power to change levies, specific levies that can impact total dollars, which then can offset things, but then that just all goes into the mix about how that all looks. So it's not, I don't want to try and simplify it, because it's not simple. It's actually very convoluted and complicated. But I think if we look at things in a more broader picture and have that discussion, we can try and simplify it down to get at least an understanding of where we're going. I know Carrie just loves working on numbers, so.
I'm already having an outline of this meeting that Carrie and I are gonna have afterwards, planning the June meetings.
Okay, cool. All right, so Carrie, did you have anything else?
No.
No? Okay.
Between this and the audit, I think it'll be
All right, EDC. So I'm happy to announce that EDC is in their new offices at McHenry County College. I helped move them last week, Friday. So they're officially out of the mental health building and you know, over there, they're trying to set up offices and everything. So it's a work in progress, but you know, it's one of those things where you're trying to move and keep operations going. So was that you, Brian? No.
He's frozen.
Okay. In any case, so that's EDC news.
He's gone.
Or maybe he logged off and logged back on. Natural McHenry County?
One more thing on EDC, as I mentioned to Administrative Services yesterday, the EDC and R1 were integral in working with the City of Marengo and getting a new $3 million grant to further extend the line down. We think this will be enough to get down to Anthony Road. Next month, we're going to have a resolution accepting a loan agreement, if you will, from the county to the City of Marengo for the 20% of that $3 million. We're working with the state's attorney to develop that agreement. I've got a draft. Want the DOT to sign off on some of the technical language there, but we have that going. We also learned last week that the City of Marengo is going to be looking for a new city administrator soon. Their current city administrator is going to be Assistant Carey, so we'll wish Nick the best in Carey. But that leaves a pretty big hole, because we have a mayor transition coming in Marengo and a city administrator vacancy. Talking with Mark Picos yesterday and Scott Hartman, I kind of feel like the three of us are going to really have to be keeping an eye on what's going on in Marengo as it relates to 2390. ComEd is now knocking on the door now that they've seen this new $3 million grant. So things are coming together in that sense. It's a good thing, but we're going to have to help out a lot.
Okay. Do you know if there's anything for Natural McHenry County?
They had their strategic planning meeting within the last week or so. Scott was down there pretty much all day, but that's all I know.
Okay. All right. If that's all done, then I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for 5 ILCS 120-2 personnel. Carolyn moves. John seconds.
Can I ask for a break just for 2 minutes?
You can take a break after we take the roll call
Good,
vote,
perfect,
yes.
thank you.
Eric?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So Brian, I'm gonna have you drop off and then we'll pick you back up after we come out of closed session, okay?
Yeah, if you'll text me or something like that, then I'll know when to do that.
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all those, our motion carries.
Bathroom real quick.
Terry, this was nationally?
Okay.
Yes, no, I know what the source is.
Oh, yes.
Nationally? Okay.
Yes.
I couldn't, so I just wasn't, I wanted to make sure I had.
I had quoted
And then I'll
the
have a
dire
draft
status
version
of
with the
our
red
economy and the loss of
and then a clean version.
49,000
That sounds good.
manufacturing
Okay.
jobs that have been reported.
So it'll be clear what it
That was
is.
the most
Okay.
recent report.
I'll entertain a motion to go back into open session at 10:24
Bring
a.m.
in my source documents so that
John,
my.
Eric,
my
seconds.
integrity is not impaired.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we are back in open session and we have, Larry is no longer here, and did Brian get back on?
He's in the waiting room. He's in the waiting room.
I can't explain it to her.
I'm waiting for Brian to get back in again.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
There he is.
I'm the mayor.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. So,
As long as he's parked.
you want to go ahead?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion reflecting the changes discussed in the executive session.
Okay. So Brian, we made some small little tweaks to the contract in executive session. Pete agreed to them, and we're going to send them over to the state's attorney just for proofreading. But so Eric's making a motion to put those changes into the resolution before we vote on it.
It's just mostly clarity.
It's just,
It's just clarity type stuff.
All right, so it has nothing to do with the preferred tenure or the preferred salary.
It has, I don't know.
No, it does not.
no. No,
adds
it does
clarity.
not.
It just adds clarity about intent.
All right, I'm fine with that as long as there was no concern about the additional years of the contract or the amount of the contract.
Nope.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Brian, I wouldn't state that. That was not on the table for discussion. It's not an option, so to discuss or review.
Okay.
And we lost him.
So Eric made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
John, or John, Carolyn? I don't care. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so now we have a modified resolution 713 that we need to vote on. Any other further discussion? Okay, if not, we'll go to vote. Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry's no longer here. Brian?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. We have no other business, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:27. John and Terry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks, everyone.